Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Living Jewishly class. We are in Siman 3, Seif 3. Last week we spoke about not to be like the nations of the world, not to wear their types of clothes, not to wear their types of shoes, not to even be compared to them in any way, not in the way we cut our hair, right? And none of it, it should all, we have to differentiate ourselves. There's Seif number 3, Seif Gimel says the following. Lo yilbash b'gadim yikarim. One should not wear expensive clothes. Ki davar zeh mevi es ha'adam l'dei gava. Because such behavior of wearing really expensive, beautiful clothes brings a person to a feeling of haughtiness. One should not either wear very inferior or dirty clothing. So he should not be humiliated in the eyes of others. Rather, he should have clean clothes of average quality. La'olam yimkor adam afilu koros beso v'yikach min olav l'ragov. As a general rule, one should be prepared to sell even the beams of his house and use those funds thus obtained to buy shoes for his feet. It's more important for you to have shoes than to have beams in your walls. All right? Right.
It's a little hyperbole, isn't it? Just a bit.
I'm not so sure. Because if someone doesn't feel like a mensch in the way they dress, well, at some point they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage either and stuff like that. A person has to have a certain level of self-respect. They need to have a little bit of, and it's very, very important, which is why it's very interesting. My great grandfather, Reb Dov Tzvi Heller, was a very, very special man. It was Reb Dov Tzvi Heller. He was a very special man. And in his yeshiva, he had a special love for each and every one of his students. He really cared about them all. And what he did at the end of every semester in yeshiva, before they'd go home, he would have every student pick up their feet. They'd pick up their feet. Imagine, they come, they'd say goodbye to the rabbi. I'll see you in a month. And they'd pick up their feet. And he would examine their feet, their shoes.
Yeah, sure
if their shoes were not appropriate, he would immediately give them money, go buy shoes before you go home. You can't go home with such shoes. And he'd give each of the students whatever money they needed so that they can have shoes that are appropriate for going home and seeing their parents. So that's a very important thing. An incredible little, what they call in Yiddish, a maisela. All right, a little story. Okay, now I'll Siman Seif 4. Lefi shemotzinu, since we find shehayaminu hi chashuva b'Torah, since we find that in the Torah, it's a general rule. The right side is more significant. The right side is more important than the left side, right? Okay, we know this? Okay, established. We mentioned this many times before.
Unless you're left-handed.
Right. Unless you're left-handed, then your left hand is your right hand. Right? But your right hand is the most important. Your right side is the most important. L'inyan avoda, with regard to the temple service, which must be performed with the right hand. A Kohen, by the way, who is a lefty, could not serve in the temple. It's considered a blemish.
Are you a Kohen?
Yes, and I'm a right,
and he's a righty.
Oh, thank God.
There you go. There you go. We make sure our Kohens here are top notch. Okay. So that's right.
There you go.
L'inyan avod. Okay. L'inyan bohen yad v'bohen regel shel miluim b'shel Mitsura. And with regard to the application of the thumb and big toe in the service of the inauguration of the Tabernacle and the purification of the Mitsura, which was applied to the right hand and right foot, the Le'inyan mitzvahs chalitza, and with regard to the mitzvah of chalitza. Anybody knows what the mitzvah of chalitza is?
Yeah, to get out of levirate marriage.
Correct. So literally taking off of the shoe. This procedure the levirate marriage, releases the widow of a man who died without children from the obligation to marry one of her deceased husband's brothers and allows her to marry whomever she wishes. So this releases her, so to speak, from any type of limitations. So that would also be done with the right hand. And moved from the right foot. Lochein, therefore, bilavisha, when getting dressed, v'chein b'shar dvarim, and in other activities as well, la'olam yakdim shel yamin l'shel smol. One should always give precedent to the right over the left. Always the right over the left. Ubachalitzas haman min alim, and conversely.
Shouldn't be.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna mute the.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so too, conversely, when we take off our shoes, b'shar b'gadim and other garments, yachlutz shall smol tchila. You should take off the left shoe first. The left shoe, the left side of the garments. If you're taking out your shirt, take out the left side. V'zehu shezehu kvoda shel yamin. Since taking it off in this order also gives respect to the right side, as it remains in the more honorable state of being dressed for a longer time. This, by the way, I'll explain in a second. I'll give you a different example. Ve'ach le'inyan kshira, however, with regards to articles of clothing that require tying, any article that requires tying, the left goes first. Okay, tying, the left goes first. Tie your sneaker, tying shoes, tying tefillin on the left.
I was going to say it's related to the film.
Correct. Right? The left side is considered more significant with regarding to tying. Since the tefillin are tied onto the left arm.
Whatever.
Right? Therefore, kishitzorach likshor yikshor. Therefore,
Watch your step.
You don't like that.
No, I mean,
I know who
I
that is.
thought it-
Okay, get them off.
I thought I muted them. Okay.
No, you tried.
Okay. Hey, Gary.
Wants to be in charge of meetings.
Yeah. So, therefore, kishitzorach likshor yikshor shel smol tchila. When donning any articles of clothing that require tying, even if you have a sleeve that has something that needs to be tied at the end of it, you tie always the left first. You dress the right first. You wash the right first. When you undress the left first.
So,
And you tie the left first.
so what would be the logic about not tying the right side first? I don't understand why that would be different. You're getting dressed, right? And you have to tie your
Right.
shoes.
So putting on your shoe, the process of putting on your shoe would be you put on your right shoe,
Right.
you put on your left shoe,
Mhm.
tie your left shoe, tie your right shoe.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right shoe, left shoe, tie left, tie right.
So you're having to turn an extra turn.
For the right foot.
I'm serious.
For the right side. The right side is the side of mercy, is the side of kindness. And tying, you have to understand, is limitation. Tying means limitation. And left side is called din, which is judgment.
Yeah.
So you want judgment to be limited more than you want kindness to be limited. Okay? There's another thing, which we'll see at the end of this seif. L'chein, kishitzorach likshor yikshor shel smol tchila, when donning any articles of clothing that require tying, one should tie the left side first, although the right side is put on first. Kigon min alim sheyesh behem kshir nol shel yamin ve'ino kosho nol shel smol v'kosho ve'achar kach kosho shel yamin v'chein b'shar b'gadim. He says, so when you're putting on shoes, you put on the right shoe, don't tie it. Put on the left shoe and tie it, and then tie the right shoe.
I'm doing good to wash my hands correctly.
Good. One step at a time. Okay, there you go.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Because I catch myself.
Always right first, except for tying, right?
You take the cup and you put it in your right, but
Right.
Right.
You take the cup in the right, you put it in the left, and you pour it onto the right, onto the left, onto the right, onto the left, onto the right, onto the
So
left.
if you don't have a cup and you have running water, can you put your hand under the water and then put it on your?
Oh, no, you must go get a cup.
Yeah, yeah. You can even use a coffee cup. You can use a regular disposable cup.
You gotta do it the way the priest did it and the thing when they didn't. have running water.
Actually, also when my wife and I and our children have gone on vacation, we would always bring an extra cup just in case, because sometimes you go to these places they don't have any cups,
Yeah.
right? So that's
You always bring a extra cup.
that's right. Oh, very good. Yeah. So I'll tell you very quickly, with regards to honoring someone, when you have someone, a big rabbi, someone like a parent, you always give honor by allowing them in first to the house, in first to the room. Going out, it's the opposite. It's them going out last. So why? Because if you were to say to the honorable person, here, go first, get out of my house first. It's like, that's a little bit, they leave last. All right? It's an important thing to remember. People think, oh, it's always them first. No, first in going in, last in going out.
It's hard to imagine.
Any questions from the Zoom gallery? None. Okay, we continue. Oopa, sorry here. Okay, here we continue. Number 5, Seif number 5. Yizoher mililbosh shnei bgadim yachad. One should take care to avoid putting on 2 articles of clothing at once. Don't try to put on 2 clothes at once. Mishum dekash l'shikha, because this has a negative effect of causing forgetfulness. There's another reason you don't put on 2 garments at one time. Especially, there's a very holy Hasidic custom, like a Kabbalistic custom, that 2 people shouldn't dress a person. Like if you have sometimes a little child, they're trying to rush the child. Let's go. We got to get him to school. So one puts on the pants, one puts on the shirt, one puts on the, right? No, you shouldn't do that. 2 people shouldn't dress one person at a time. Why? That's what you do for the deceased.
Ah.
Okay?
Oh.
When you go to the Chevra Kadisha, right? If anyone's ever volunteered there, I recommend and urge everyone to do that, to have that special privilege. That's one of the things that they do is they dress. 2 people need to put on the pants. 2 people need to put on the shirt. 2 people together put it on.
Did they dress them before they wrap them in a shroud? Or they
No,
just
that's the
wrap them
shroud.
up?
The shroud. The shroud is not just a wrap. It's clothes. It's actual clothes.
It's actual clothes.
Yeah,
I did not know
I
that.
didn't know that either. I thought it was just a big
Pants,
sheet.
shirt, and like an overcoat.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you're not going to be
I
freezing
mean, it's
cold.
like a white sheet, isn't it? That's what my father
I
was.
always thought it was just.
He was
cheap,
like
but-
in a
Well, in
white
Israel,
sheet.
it's very different. In Israel, they're just wrapped in a talit.
Yeah, but here.
Here,
Yeah,
they're
it's
in shrouds, in
shirts,
actual
shirts.
shrouds.
Did
Yes.
they put shoes on them?
No shoes.
No.
Where are they walking?
But the same place that they're trying to keep warm in.
All right. No, they're not trying to
Oh.
keep warm. Right. The shrouds are not for keeping warm. That's for them.
I mean, did they put socks on?
No.
No socks?
No, but the pants are closed. So they're
Well, the
closed.
bottom is closed.
Bottom is closed.
Like baby
They're special.
All right.
And
And
the
then
footies in them.
right. And well, it's not exactly footies, but and they tie like a bow on the bottom to like
Keep your toes in.
All the funerals I've ever been to have been closed casket.
right
So I've never seen a person
in a
in a
shroud.
shroud
Oh, yeah.
in all my years.
Well, my father-in-law was, and it looked like he was wrapped like in a sheet kind of thing.
That's what I thought.
Well,
a shroud
that's-
was.
well-
He was, he was kind of wrapped up.
You
Yeah.
saw him?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
Well, I mean, at least the half of the.
well he was right. See, right. So what happens is when they put the body in the casket, so what goes in is the body with pants, with a shirt and an overcoat, with all of these knots are tied, right? So you have a belt, you have by the ankles, you have different ties, you have by the neck, the top of the shirt. You make sure they look like a mensch. And then when they're all ready, you put them into the casket. In the casket, there's another big sheet of the same material as the shrouds, and they put the deceased in there. Under the head, there is hay in a pillow like. Okay, there's hay, and then you have earth from Jerusalem, which you sprinkle in there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they put them in, and there's also like a hood over the head.
Oh, see, he didn't have that.
Not a hood, it's not attached to anything, it's just the hood without. And then they wrap with that extra that extra sheet, they wrap them up. So probably they unwrap just the top, but that's what it is. It's on top of the shrouds.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Learn something new every day. That's what we come to class.
Every day.
But he didn't have anything on his head, though.
They probably put it on after when they close, before they closed it up. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. There are some that have a custom of putting wine on the hair of the head or on the head, the forehead. Some had different customs. The reason they did that is because they used to steal the bodies from the morgues.
Uh-huh.
So like this, they would be able to identify the Jewish bodies by the wine that was on the head, so on and so forth. That's really where the source is from. In Houston, they don't have this custom. And when I lived in Bridgeport, I was part of the Chevra there, and they did have that custom there. And it really goes by city.
You're talking about the wine.
The wine, right? Some put also egg. They mix it together. There's like a whole something, right? There's many different customs, and each custom really is from its own locale of what was necessary. The main fundamental principle is they need to be washed with the utmost dignity to prepare them really for standing in front of the Almighty. That's really the goal, and to do that properly with the proper respect and honor that's due the person who's passed. So he says now in Seif number 6, Asur lelech arba amos. It is forbidden to walk 4 amos, which is, as we mentioned, about 7 to 8 feet. Or to recite words of holiness, begilui rosh, without a covering of the head. Vigam, so it means if someone has his head uncovered, right, they shouldn't be saying any words of holiness. One should also accustom children to cover their heads, so that they should have the fear of heaven upon them. As we find related to the Talmud about Reb Nachman, the son of Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Amrei la kaldoi chosin bakochavim. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak was young, and his mother was told by astrologers, "Berich ganva yeheve, your son is going to be a thief." This is what they saw, and the astrologers. This is what they saw. Amrale lo shvakte gluye reshe. From that time on, she never allowed him to uncover his head. Amrale, she told him, Kasi reishach, this is all in Aramaic, Ki hevi aloch emasa dishmaya. Cover your head so that the fear of heaven should be upon you at all times, and that way you won't come to stealing. As Talmud, he stops it here, but I'll tell you what the Talmud continues.
Who is the she and he?
The mother of Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak. The astrologist told her that your son's going to be a thief. So she made sure from the minute he was born that he was had his head covering. Okay, want to hear the rest of the story?
Yes, please.
I'll tell you the rest of the story. Talmud says, you want me to read it to you in the Talmud? I'll read it to you in the Talmud. 156b. So you don't think like I'm cheating you from something or I'm leaving something out. Most remarkable Talmud. 156b in Tractate Shabbat. 156b. It's right at the end of the Talmud. Um, okay. Ready for this?
Yeah.
So she said, the mother said, what did she say to her son?
Make sure your head's always.
Make sure your head is covered. Right? Cover your head so that the fear of heaven should always be upon you. Boi rachame, and pray for God's mercy that the evil inclination should not dominate you. So two things she told him. Number one, to cover your head always so that you have the fear of heaven, and talk to Hashem and pray that He should protect you from the evil inclination. Lo haviyada my ka'amra, right? He never knew why she told him this. Yom echad, one day, Yosef kogoris tute dedikla. He sat studying under a palm tree. He was sitting with his friends, and they were sitting under a palm tree, and they were studying Torah. Nafal glima milove reshe, and the cloak fell off his head. His yarmulke fell off his head. Doli eine chazel dikla. He lifted his eyes and saw the palms. Alme yitzre, his evil inclination overpowered him. Salik paske likibura bishine, and he went up and chopped off a cluster of dates with his teeth. Right? 1 second that he didn't have that yarmulke on his head, it flew off with the wind. Right? He picks up his dates, grabs the dates and eats them.
But they weren't his. Is
Correct.
That what the point is? Okay.
Then what the Talmud here is saying is that that's how much. Number 15 commentary here says the palm tree was not his, and thus he stole the dates. Therefore, we see that Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, it wasn't just some young, punk. This is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, one of the Tanaic sages, right? Was destined to be a thief, yet prayer and a reverent mode of dress altered his destiny. Meaning, although someone can say, what's going to be with me? I was already told by the astrologers, my mazel is that I'm. You can change that, right? And his change was with altering, making sure that he always had a yarmulke, a head covering, and praying was able to turn that around. Magadim Chadashim suggests that this episode happened in Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak's childhood before he had a chance to overcome his inborn nature. So that's why he right away acquiesced to his Yetzer Hara, is because he was still a young lad. All right? Is that an interesting Talmud? A little interesting Talmud? All right. More like that at Ed's Lunch and Learn on Friday. Be there. All right. Asur leilech b'koma skufa. It is forbidden to walk with a upright posture, right? And we're not talking to be hunched back, but we're talking about not to be like walking around like, oh, this is my world here, person the gorei natuya, natui, and with an outstretched neck, holding one's head high. As the verse states, with regard to the haughty manner of the daughters of Zion, and they would walk with outstretched necks. Nevertheless, he should also not bow his head excessively while walking. Elamida beinonis. Rather, he should be positioned at an average incline. Normal person. Not like, right? And not too humble. Don't, right? Normal. Enough that he can see a person coming toward him. Begam midrach kafrago. But also that he can see his own steps. Hara Rabbeinu Yonah v'Sefer Yira. So says Rabbeinu Yonah in his book, the Sefer Yira. Gami mahalcho shel adam. Even from the way a person walks, nikar im chacham ubaldehu. It can be discerned whether he is a wise and intelligent person, oshota v'sachal, or a mindless fool. V'chein Omer Shlomo v'chachmaso. King Solomon in his wisdom expressed, V'gam b'derech she'asachol holech libo chaser v'amar lakol sachol hu. Even on the road, as the fool walks, he lacks sense and proclaims to all that he is a fool without saying anything. How does he proclaim it? His mind is empty. He's looking around. He's busy looking around. It means he doesn't have anything inside. He's constantly trying to seek from outside. But someone who's fulfilled from inside, right? Someone who's fulfilled from inside isn't busy looking around. My grandfather would say this when he would talk about protecting one's eyes from seeing things that are inappropriate and or distractions. He would always say that you can see people and their level of holiness by how they walk in the street. People who are constantly walking like this, right? They're not in a spiritual state. Someone who's focusing on ideas, on holiness, right? Don't walk around in that way, in that manner. Okay, one more. If Yeshli Hizayer, my grandfather, I was saying about it's something which is very important. The Brisker Rav, the Rabbi of Brisk, his father would stand by the window and he would review the Talmud that they learned. So someone asked him, why are you standing by the window? He said, what's the problem? There's nothing outside. Right? Meanwhile, he was right in front of the marketplace. But his father trained him to be so immersed in his thoughts, he didn't even see what was going on in front of him. That's really the ultimate, is that because such a person who's living in it's an alternate reality. Such a person doesn't get distracted by things. That person is centered in the world of holiness. Okay, number 8, Yeshli Zari, it is proper to take care that a man not walk between two women and vice versa. Lo bein shtei klavim, not either to walk between two dogs. O shnei chazirim, or two swine. V'chein lo yanichu ha'anashim. Likewise, two men should not allow shetelech b'nei misha. A woman should not allow a woman to walk between them either. O kelav o chazer, nor a dog or a swine to walk between them. So that concludes Siman Gimel.
Explanation.
Oh, you want explanation of everything? Okay, I'll tell you. So he brings over here the Talmud 22 and 23. The Gemara in Aryeh states that walking between two women will cause a person to forget his learning. Rabbi Yedidya Apnini explains that he will be distracted by the women, and this will cause him to lose focus. He's going to get busy with the women. The idea is not to be busy with women. So sages tell us a trick is that a man who needs to walk here, sometimes you're at Kiddush, right? You're at Kiddush and Shul, and it's all crowded. You're not supposed to walk between two women, right? So our sages tell us if you hold on to your tzitzit, when you walk through, then it's the tzitzit are your companion, or two men can hold hands and walk together between the two women. But the idea is to maintain a level of appropriateness at all times. The Gemara in Pesachim states that walking between these creatures or surrounding them creates an aura that can be damaging to a person's health. I want to tell you something, okay? So we're going to stop the recording here.